Hello everyone, welcome back to another tutorial. In today's video I'm going to be making a map selection screen, and that includes the UI as well. So let's just get straight into it. I'm going to head to Start UI here and create a screen UI. Same with our UI here, or rename it to UI. I'm going to create a frame. Now I'm going to be going through this very fast, and I probably won't explain too much of it. And that's because this isn't a UI tutorial, this is a programming tutorial. So if you want to follow along, sure, go ahead, but I most likely won't be explaining a lot of the things I'm doing here, such as aspect ratios and sizing objects and things like that. Anyways, I'm turning this into a container here, and inside of that I am going to add a header. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to set this to 10, and probably something like 0.2 will work. There we go. Scroll down here, get to our font, set the source sans as bold. I'm going to write something in here like vote for a map, and I'm going to change our font color to 25 by 25 by 25, slightly less gray. From there I can simply add UI corner to round off the corners here. Corner radius will be somewhere around 0.1 it seems. Yeah, that looks good like that. Cool. I'm just going to rename this text label to header, so it's just not called text label. And from there I'm going to make the container for all of our maps. So I'm going to name this maps. Drag this down a bit. Can you just do this manually? 10 by let's say something like 10 by 0.8 maybe, because the top thing was 0.2. That seems good enough. Position this all the way at the bottom by 1. Need to make it slightly smaller, it's a bit too big here. 0.8 seems cool. Let me copy and paste our UI corner into this as well. Make it slightly smaller, 0.2 might work. Maybe 0.4, 0.3, we'll see here. Seems like 0.3 looks good. Now, delete that UI corner. I actually don't need it for now. I need to set this to completely transparent, like so. And I'm going to create our first map in here. So I'm going to make a image button, because that's what we're going to be clicking, an image button. And I'm going to paste our UI corner into that. Now from there I am going to make this 0.33 by probably 10, and our objective is to match our x-axis with our y-axis. So right now this is a bit too big on the y-axis, so all I can really do here is make it smaller to match. There we go, perfect. From there I'm going to go to our image. Now I've already got images for my map in advance. For now I'm just going to paste it because that's all I do, and my maps in this are just going to be the base plates, like just different colors of base plates. From there I am going to add a border to it, so let's do UI stroke. Let's make this white and add to the thickness. There we go, now we have a border around our base plate. Gonna rename this to map. Now this will be our template map, so we're just gonna clone this for every map we have. And I'm gonna create a text label in here, and this will be our let me just size this up real quick, like so. And this is gonna be at the bottom of our screen. Position here. Oops, that's offset. Need scale. There we go. And I'm going to text scale this up. Also switch the source sans bold, change the color as well, and I'm just going to put 0 in there because that's a 0. Remove the background. Cool, that looks good. I'll change this to votes, and I'm going to copy and paste this, another text label, drag this up, make this slightly smaller because this is going to be our map name. 25 seems good. And I'm just going to write base plate because that's the default map name. Head back up here, change this to map name, and we're nearly done here. I think we've got a little bit of issues. We have this random line here. I'm trying to figure out what's the issue. I believe that's because they're not. This is a lighter color. Let's change this to something like this. And I need to fix whatever's going on at the bottom here. Maybe I'll rise this by 1. Alright, cool. So now we've got the name of our map and the verts. From here, we're going to add UI list layout, which is going to put our different maps in a list. So let's just copy and paste this twice. And we're also going to add UI list layout, like I said. So now that we've got our UI list layout, it's in the wrong way, so set this to horizontal. And we also need to add a bit of padding, so we can actually see what we're doing between the things. Now, this is a bit too small, so I'm going to create this bigger a bit. Make our map slightly smaller. And I think we're good. Now I did forget a UI aspect ratio constraint, so let me add that real quick. Now I have a plugin that calculates the UI aspect ratio constraint for us. I'll leave that in the link below. Of course you could calculate this with math and such, but it's much simpler just to use a plugin. And this looks good, it seems. Let's see what it looks like on the iPad. Yeah, perfect. Alright. I'm gonna add just a little bit more padding here between the things so we can actually see. Let's say 0.15. Need to create this slightly bigger. And yeah, cool. That's our map selection. Now let's delete these other two templates. Set this to invisible because it's our template. And I'm also going to put this off the screen at the bottom because we're going to tween it up when we actually get into verting. From here, I'm going to slow down a bit because it's no longer the UI part. But from here, we're going to actually create our maps now. Now, for this example, I'm just going to be using some base plates and I've changed the color of them. Of course, in a real scenario, you'd go ahead and make your own maps and stuff. But for example's sake, I'm just going to use some base plates. And that includes just some different colored ones. So as you see here, I've also got a blue base plate and a red base plate. Now let's actually get these maps set up. I'm going to go to replicated storage here, go to our folder, and I'm going to create a folder called maps. And inside that, I'm going to create a folder for each of our maps. So the first one I'm going to call base plate, like so. And I'm also going to add an attribute, and I'm going to name this icon. And I'll get to this in a second later. For now, let's get our gray base plate, put it in here. Let's copy this folder, make a new one. Let's name this blue base plate because that's where our other one's going. I'm putting an underscore here because I'm just in my code later. I'm just gonna replace the underscore for space. From there, we can copy, or actually just drag our blue one into there. And I've also got a red one, so let's make one for that as well. Red base plate. And I'm going to drag our red base plate to that. And I think I accidentally had the grey one in there as well. So now we have blue, red, and grey. Now, for the icon thing, that is going to be the images that are shown when it comes up on the player's screen for what map they want to vote. I've already created these beforehand, so I'm just going to add the ones I already have. I recommend you just go into any image editing software you have, just take some photos of your map, crop it to a square and upload that, and that can be the icon. So let me just get the red map here. I think I already just did it. But yeah, let me paste the red in there, and let me also get the blue one. And paste the blue one in here. Cool, now that our icons are set up, we just need two more things in the replicated storage, which will be our two remote events. One we will call vote, and this will handle things. Actually, I'll call this one update. One we'll call update, and this will be handling updating the UI and such stuff like that. And another one will be called vote, and that's for communicating with the server and client. When the player, let's say they click something on their screen saying I want to vote this map, we need to tell the server that they're voting for that map. Other than that, let's get straight into the programming part of things. I'm going to go to our script service here and create a script. I'm going to name this server because that's going to be the server side of our code. In here, I am going to create a variable for our replicated storage. So let's write replicated storage. And this is going to be for our service, of course. Replicated storage, there we go. And I'm also going to create another two variables. One called votes. And this will be storing the votes for all our maps. and another one will be called voted, and this will store what players have voted. We don't want players putting in multiple votes, and we don't want exploiters messing with our system, so that's why we're going to check if a player is voted or not beforehand. From there we can actually create our vote function, so let's write vote maps, and we're going to be calling this whenever we want to vote for maps. For example's sake, I'm just going to call it randomly after, let's say, 5 seconds. Now in a real scenario you'd set this up so it'll be like in a round based system or something like that, but for this example I'm just going to call it after the server boots up. From there we're going to wipe our votes and our voted. Now I could just do this in one line actually, so votes and voted like so. That's going to wipe it. From there I'm going to write maps. Actually I'll keep them separated for simplicity's sake, so let me just do that real quick. And voted. Yeah, that's just gonna wipe them, so they start off fresh every time we want to vote for a new map. We're also gonna create a variable for our maps, an empty array there, and we're also gonna name one map selection, which is gonna go to our replicated storage, our maps, and get children, which are just gonna get all the maps within this folder here. From there, we're gonna pick 3 random maps. Now, of course, you could do more, you could do less. It's really up to you. You could add more maps into this map queue. Now it's not necessarily going to be random because I already have 3 maps and I'm choosing 3 maps. It's always going to get the same 3 maps. So let me just do that real quick. We're going to write repeat. But yeah, this system will work for as many maps as you have. From there we're going to repeat until maps equals 3. And I'll explain this in a second once I write the rest of this code and what this hashtag is as well. For now I'm just going to create a variable equals maps. That's going to go to our map selection. And that's going to refer to, like I said, all these folders in here, and then we're going to pick a random one inside that. So I'm going to do math.random, and that's going to be a number between 1 and how many maps we actually have. If you put a hashtag in front of a table or an array, it will return how many items are in that. Now when we write get children, that does return an array, so it's going to return an array filled of all of our maps. So our base plate, red base plate, and blue base plate. So putting the hashtag before here is just going to return us 3. And that's what this means down here as well, is we're going to repeat this loop until we have 3 maps that we've chosen, and then it'll end. Now that we've got our random map, from there we can check if it's already in our chosen map. So let's write if not table.find, and we're going to look for the maps we've chosen, and we're going to look for the map.name. What this is going to do is we don't want to pick the same map twice. We don't want to have base plate, and red base plate, or blue base plate, red base plate, blue base plate. We don't want to choose the same map multiple times. Now, if you do, then sure, you can leave this out. But in this example, I'm going to leave it in. From there, I'm going to write table.insert. We're going to insert it into our maps, and we're going to insert the map name into that. There we go. And from there I want to add it to our votes table as well, so map.name and equals 0, and this is just going to add it to our votes table we had up here for later when we actually vote for the maps. From there we can tell the client or all the players that we're actually voting for a map. So let's do that. Let's do replicated storage .vote fire all clients, which is going to tell every person playing the game that we are voting for these maps. Cool. If we write down here, we write print maps and click play, will actually tell us what maps the server has picked for us to vote for. So if we just wait 5 seconds here, as you can see, blue base plate, red base plate, and normal base plate, because that's the only 3 maps we have. And we're going to send that to the client now, and they're going to be able to choose what out of those 3 what maps they want to play on. From there we can go, let's go down to our UI, make a local script, because now we're going to be talking with the player itself. Just going to name this client. I'm going to copy our replicated storage line up here because we also need that. But I'm going to create 2 different variables, one called UI, and that's going to be for our UI, so script.parent, and one for our voting menu. So let's write UI.voting menu. Now that we've got our voting menu, we can do stuff with it. Let's open all this stuff up so we can see it for later. Let's receive our request from the server, so let's do replicated storage vote on client event connect function player, oh sorry, maps. And what that's going to do is, like I said earlier, the maps that we've selected for the players to vote, we're going to send that to the client, and now that we're going to show it on their screen. Alright, if maps, then this is just going to simply check, just in case we didn't send or didn't choose maps or didn't send maps through, we're going to check for it before we actually open anything. Now let's get to the next part. Now let's say it was the third time, fourth time, fifth time, any time after one, they're voting for a map. So it's the second time they're voting for a map. The maps from last time are still going to be in the UI, and we need to get rid of them before we show up the new maps. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to write for underscore v. We're going to use a pair loops here for our voting menu, and then .maps. So that's all the things inside this frame here. Right now we only have the example one, the template, and the UI list layout. We want to delete any maps that we had from last time, from earlier. And the way we're going to do that is get children do, and we're going to check. So we're going to write if name doesn't equal maps, because we don't want to delete the default one. We want to keep our template, and we also want to just check if it's a button. So if is a image button, then we will delete it, because we don't accidentally delete our UI list layout, which makes them laid out in a row horizontally. So it's called v.destroy, which will delete those. For now, we can actually load in our maps on the player screen. So for underscore v in pairs, another pairs loop here. For all the maps, let's actually create each map. So local map equals replicate storage dot maps dot v, and this is going to get the physical thing. This maps table up here, it's just a word, as you can see here, it's just a string, it's not the actual physical map. So we actually need to go find it on our client here, which will get the folder. From there, we just want to get the template, this down here, the map button, which will show up on their screen. We also need that, so let's get that, voting menu dot maps dot map. And because that was our template, we're going to clone it. We don't want to just overwrite our template. And then we can just do map vote dot name equals v, which is going to set it to the name of the map. And then map vote dot map name dot text. And then we can also do v here, which will then show that text we had up earlier. Let me actually bring up the UI here real quick so we show you what I mean. We're going to be changing this text here to the name of the map. So let's say it was blue base plate, we're going to change it to blue base plate. But because we had underscores here, we need to actually get rid of them. And the way we do that is with gsub, so string.gsub. And we're talking about our string here. We're getting rid of underscores and replacing it with just a space, like so. I'm also just going to minimize this again because we don't need it up on our screen. Go back to map vote here. I'm going to change the image to the icon. So I'm going to write map, which is referring to our physical one, the folder here. And because we made that attribute earlier called icon, we can just get the icon. So get attribute, and in there we can just write we're getting the icon. And then from there we want to do map vote.visible, because by default it's not visible, so true. And then map vote.parent, we want to move it to our maps list, so voting menu.maps. Now, after all that, we need to bring it up on the player screen. So let's do voting menu, tween position, udm2.new, 0.5 by 0.5 by 0. And let's just add some nice effects in there, out, quad, and let's do 0.2 seconds. Click play here. After 5 seconds, the map should show up on our screen, hopefully. So wait a bit here. There we go. There's our three different maps. We got our red one, our blue one, and our regular one. Now we can't actually click them currently. This is what we're going to do next. So let's tell the server we're actually clicking on it. So let's add map vote dot mouse button one click, which it handles the clicking. And from there we're going to call the server saying, hey, we are voting for this map. So let's write fire server v. And v is just the name of the map, like we had earlier. That's going to send it all the way to our server, and our server is now going to process that. So let's write replicate storage vote on server event connect function, and then player, because that's we want to know where it's coming from, what player, and what map they're voting for. From there, we're going to check if that map actually exists. We don't want to be voting for a map that doesn't exist. And we also want to check that they haven't voted already. We don't want them to click it 10 times and they get 10 votes in. So we're going to check player.name to see if they're already voted. From there, if both of these conditions are met, if the map exists and they haven't voted yet, then we can add it. So table.insert voted player name. That's going to tell the game or the server that they've already voted, so they can't vote again. And we're going to go to votes map. We're going to add plus equals 1 to that vote, because that's what we're voting for. And then we're going to tell every other player that, hey, this person's voted, update their screen. So let's say player 1 clicks the red map. On player 2, it's going to tell that player 1 has voted for that map, so updates on their screen. And then from there, we can go back to our client here and update it on everyone's screen. So let's go back here. And let's do replicated storage dot update, because we're finding the update room right here. Dot update dot on client event connect function votes. Now I think I forgot to pass the votes into here. Yes, I did. We need to pass who and what has voted for what maps. Now that we've passed it onto our client, we can do for iv in pairs votes, which is going to loop through all our votes. And we're going to go to our voting menu, our maps, write the index, which will be the name of our map, votes.text equals v, and that's going to update that number we had, the counter for it. So now if we click play here and the maps come up, we click on a map, it's going to update it, red base plate. Now if it was another player in our game, they'll also see that we've clicked red base plate, and it's going to count up. And as you can see, I'm clicking right now, I can't click any other maps. But we actually have to decide what map won. So let's just quickly do that. Let's head back to our server here, which we already have open. And after we fire all the clients, we're going to wait. Now this can be as long as you want. If I can type here, task.wait. And for example's sake, let's do 10 seconds before the voting ending. Now you could implement a timer UI if you really wanted some more advanced stuff, but for this example I'm just going to wait on the server. After 10 seconds, let's get the highest voted map and spawn it in. So selected map equals replicated storage dot maps, and then we want to get the highest map. Now I'm actually going to create a function for that. So for now I'm going to comment out this line of code so it doesn't interfere with anything else, and I'm going to go back up here and create a function, and I'm going to write this local function highest vote, and we're going to make multiple variables here, two actually, one called map, one called highest, and it's going to be the map is going to equal to nil and the highest is going to be 0 by default. From there we're going to decide what map has actually been voted the most. So I'm going to do for iv in pairs votes, then do for if v, and I'll explain this all in a second. If v is bigger than highest, then map equals I and highest equals v. Now what's happening here is all our votes, it's going to go through each map. So let's say base plate, and let's say 10 people voted for it. If 10 people is bigger than the highest, which is currently 0 by default, then that is the highest map. Now it's going to say our highest map is base plate and it has 10 votes. It's going to go to the next map in the order. So let's say the blue map, and they have 15 votes. So is 15 bigger than 10? Then yes, they're now the new highest. Let's say red came along but they only had 4 votes. Is 4 bigger than 15? No, it isn't. So we're going to skip over them, they're not the biggest. So at the end of all that, the blue map was the highest voted one, and that's the one we're going to be returning. So return map. As simple as that. Now we can go back down here, uncomment our code. Within these square brackets, we're going to actually call our function, which is highest vote, which is going to give us the highest voted map, and we're going to clone it. So we don't want to just drag it into the workspace, we want to make a copy of it. And then we can put that in the workspace. So select the map.parent equals workspace. And then we want to get the UI off the screen because the voting UI is still on their screen. So let's get that off their screen. So the easiest way I'm going to do that is just do our vote fire all clients, and instead of passing the maps, I'm just going to pass it as empty because on our code over here, if maps, I can just write else. So if nothing was sent, then we can just get rid of the map. So we can just copy this, or get rid of the UI, sorry. We can just copy this, set this to 1.5, so it'll set it 1.5 how it is right now, it's not on the screen. And if we click play here, we should see our system work. So let's click play. Let's vote for a map. Let's say the blue base plate. I like blue. We wait, it was 10 seconds. We just wait a bit here and it should spawn in our map after 10 seconds of waiting. Oh, spawned it underneath us. But yes, it did create our map. Now let's bring our spawn location up a bit so we don't actually spawn under the map this time. Now let's say we didn't choose a map, no one chose a map, so 0 votes. My system that we've made just now is actually, it can choose one randomly. So if we just wait here, it's probably going to just choose base plate by default. Wait 10 seconds, there we go, it's automatically choosing the base plate. We can fold down and play on our map, and that is our map voting system.